begin tonight with the all-important conversation on security, particularly election security. Just yesterday, Nigerians woke up to the news that INEC's office in Imo State was attacked, the local government HQ, by the way. And that's the third time in less than 2 weeks. And this came on a day that collection of permanent voter cards commenced across the nation. And it's coming also exactly 74 days to elections. Now, concerns have heightened yet again about securing Nigeria's elections, with INEC actually calling these attacks systematic in targeting its assets across the country. I mean, the one we saw yesterday, we saw a building torched, we saw an operational vehicle torched as well. In fact, a policeman lost his life in the process. And we know that the success of any election rises and falls on security. So let's see how we can better secure our elections. And that's the focus tonight. Well, our guests tonight have vast experience in the area of security, both locally and internationally, and they'll be providing the much needed insights into this very important issue. I'll begin by introducing our guest who joins us live from our Abuja studio, Major General, in fact, Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. I'll introduce Major General in a moment, but let's begin with Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. He's a security expert, he's an adjunct faculty member, George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, and a special assistant to the President on disaster management. Group Captain, thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, INEC's offices, they're coming under severe attack. In fact, INEC has called them systematic. And this latest one is one too many for a lot of Nigerians. And I mean, this is coming after 6 successive general elections, coming, 23 years into our 4th republic. You'll expect that all of this will have left it behind. So I wonder for you, seeing the recent spate of attacks we've seen in Osun State, we've seen in Ogun State now, 3 in Imo State in just less than 2 weeks. What do you make of these recent attacks? Really, how do you see them, especially the ones playing out of recent?
Thank you very much. Now, attack on security, on electoral facilities or INEC facilities or even officials should be something that with a proper risk analysis or security risk assessment is something that should have been foreseen. When you talk of, electoral security, which clearly can just be defined as the process of protecting electoral stakeholders, information, facilities, and events. When you look at that, there are different kinds of electoral security that you require. But what I see us doing is that we laid some emphasis on some of types of security, but we did not lay emphasis on others. For example, in the types of security you need for your election to be successful, you need physical security. Now, when you talk of physical security, this is where we are. This is security of offices, INEC offices, residences of electoral officials, even candidates have been attacked, and party offices. This is one aspect of security which we didn't look at. If you look at what INEC has provided, mostly we are concentrating on security when election turns violent. We did not look at this pre-election processes of protecting our physical security assets. The picture you just show of some of the facilities at the local governments that were attacked. Right from the beginning, when we are talking of security, the problem in Nigeria, most of the times, we react rather than plan for security. Physical security is about planning. Right from where INEC is going to open an office in Kaduna. Let me use Kaduna, for example, not use the southeast. There are areas in Kaduna, if you do a proper security risk analysis, that you know they are already prone to crimes, disorderly conduct. So when INEC is thinking of an office, you do that analysis and decide in which area in Kaduna are you going to put in your office, on what kind of street, what kind of building. The building that you show of a local government, we can say, for example, in general, what security is there in local government area? In an average local government headquarters in Nigeria, almost nil. So talking about physical security with proper security risk assessment, even right from whether they are going to hire the office, whether they are going to buy it, a security expert should be able to advise this is the place. That is the beginning of your security. That is the beginning of your security. Then you come to personal security. Now personal security, you're talking of security of your election officials, of your observers, of party agents, of candidates, of observers. Anybody, including even security personnel themselves, because they have been killed. That is why your personal security comes in. The next aspect of security you need is information security. We are talking about our election going into IT. You know,
right.
So all IT things, computers, records, that is another form of security. Then electoral events, the day of the election themselves. But unfortunately, this is the only area. If you look at what INEC provided for security, which I checked before I kept this thing, you will see all the arrangements were for electoral events. That is when the election happens. We didn't think how would protect our, our offices, how, even the residents of electoral commissioners and electoral officials should be given priority. So I think this is what we are doing now. We are reacting. We are reacting. If you look at, you could take basically any office that has been attacked by INEC, look at it. Even after the attack, where is it situated? What is even the perimeter fencing, if there is? What is the CCTV? What is the the lighting system? Where is the location? We just pick any building and put INEC materials in there and make it. So this is what I am saying right from the beginning, is what is called this concept of crime prevention through environmental design. Right from where you decide to buy your plot of house, you start thinking of security.
Well, Group Captain, I see that you have even gone ahead to talk about, the responsibility, the role of the security agencies, which is a point that we'll explore even further. But I'd like to also put this in context, because yesterday's attack saw response from the security and emergency officials. In fact, 3 of the attackers are said to have been killed. And I just wanted to put that context. But let me introduce our other guests so we can expand this conversation and even put more light on this. We've since been joined by Major General Anthony Atolagbe, who is former theater commander, Operation Safe Haven, is also former commander of the United Nations African Union Hybrid Operations in Darfur. Joins us virtually on the program. Thank you very much, Major General. Just before you joined, we were talking about perhaps things that may be at play here, seeing the spate of attacks we have seen, particularly on INEC's offices. Now, these offices have been there for years, but on the verge of elections, it looks like the attacks have heightened. The recent in Imo State, 3 of them in less than 2 weeks. And I wonder for you, what do you think is at play here? Perhaps the motive. The Group Captain has talked about the responsibility of security, but then about the motive, what do you think is at play?
I say good evening to everyone, and I'm happy to be here. My colleague has spoken extensively. What I will say here is about information gathering. Okay, so if we are able to send our intelligence, gather what we call human intelligence and other various forms of gathering information, when we send them to the ground, especially conflict environments like the Southeast, you will find out that we have some areas of concentration that we provide a kind of guide to what we call threat assessment, which my colleague has spoken about. And when you do this threat assessment, now what we don't do in this country, and I'm talking about security agencies, and I'll make it clear here. There's what we call future plans in any kind of arrangement that you are doing. Future plans look at future challenges. You don't look at just the contemporary, that it has not happened before, or the idea that we are just being confronted with what is going on now does not mean that it cannot happen when the time really comes. So you see that this actually further expatiates on what Group Captain Sheo has said, that we need to do a kind of threat assessment. And this threat assessment goes further to look at what is called future plans. So in future plans, we look at future threats. And then you start looking at things that you do. So now, in this particular case, we know the theater that is concerned with some of these threats. What have we done? Are we just relying on foot soldiers who will be walking around, or just providing vehicles for people to get into vehicles? And then have we deployed drones How many of them are there? Okay, what level of technology have we applied? And these are some of the questions the security heads needs to answer, because we cannot sit down and allow these things to continue to go on. Yes, there will be threats, but we can limit these threats. We've been in theaters in Liberia, in Sudan, and we conducted elections in those countries despite the threats. But we need to bring down the level of threat to some of these facilities so that we don't have a situation where the people are unable to do their jobs. And that is just what I'll say.
On the back of that, I'm still quite particular about what is at play here, because I know that there's the war that is fought on the theater, in the theater, on the field, and there's also the narrative war, the effect of this attack, for example. INEC was particular about the positioning of the office that was just attacked. He says that, you know what, this particular office is in the state capital between a court and the state secretariat. So it's prominent, it's in a major place. And it looks like this attack was maybe daredevil, maybe to send a message, which is why I ask, what do you think is at play here, especially on the side of the attackers? Do you think that we have a grasp of the game plan, the end game that is being, you know, worked towards, such that maybe we can stay ahead of that as well?
Okay, there are a few areas that can play out. First, I saw a video this afternoon where some guys went to some places and they were bringing down billboards and the rest of it. Well, we know that this kind of problem is not easily resolved. So what do we need to do? Is it impossible to place some men around these facilities from either the police or the military or NSCDC? I don't think that is impossible. So what are we doing? Today we've just heard how the IGP has invited other members of the security agencies for meetings. What has happened at the state level? Okay, what has happened at the local government level? And are we waiting until February before we start putting things in place? All these things are part of the things I said they are concerned with future plans. You don't sit down. Some of these plans needed to have been put in place like maybe from June this year or from August this year, so that people know that, look, when people come around so facility, this is the level of response that you have. There should be a standby team either sitting somewhere close to that area if you cannot deploy physically on the place. Not this kind of reactionary kind of something. It shows incompetence. Okay, so it is something that needs to be planned well ahead, because when you have a future, an assessment of the future, and you say, okay, this thing is likely to happen. Don't say because it's happening only in one part of the country that it cannot happen in another country, in other states. No, that is not the way. You need to work things out and make sure that there's just a seamless way of responding to some of these threats without people just going there. Then people are walking around and stretching their necks through the windows to go and check, okay, what is the level of damage? You are not there to go and carry out assessment of damages. Right. You are supposed to be there to be able to ward off these guys or get control of the area so that it doesn't fall into the hands of these daredevils.
All right, let's bring in Group Captain Sadiq Shehu into this conversation yet again. And I know that you have detailed the types of security. Talk about physical security, personal security, even security for the materials. Before we talk about election day security, and you've identified some of these issues. But with the current security architecture we have in Nigeria today, maybe we'll begin to look at that to see where the solution will come from. Are we able to adequately, clinically, effectively provide all of that with the setup as it is today, or you think that some things need to be tweaked so we can better handle that?
Well, in that your question, you are talking about the sufficiency of security as we have in Nigeria. And this even goes beyond even without the election. Even without the election, we know there's nothing hidden, that we are low on numbers of security personnel. Whether you talk about the military, who are not even the most important players in security election, if we are serious, police are low in numbers. So that is not a news item. We know we're already low on security. You can see the low level of security we have when we have off-season elections. When I mean not the regular elections. You will see sometimes almost 3 neighboring states have to be emptied of all their security officers to go and provide security in one state. So definitely that tells you when there is a national election that covers most of the states, you are going to have problem of numbers. Now, having said that, permit me please to just go back to the issue that my boss here, Oga Atolagbe, raised on the issue of collecting information. We've been doing rounds and rounds of, of elections since democracy returned. It should be a lesson gathering process. One area is more dangerous than another. INEC should be keeping such records so that when 2023 passes, we know the areas that poses a challenge. When 2027 God spares our life, it is going to happen again. You know areas where we are going to lay your, more emphasis than others. Certainly some areas will be more volatile, either because of the kind of politics there. So many factors can make one area more volatile than another. So these are lessons that you should carry forward when next you are doing. And again, the issue of when you look at the Southeast, even without the election, we have issue of IPOP, we have issue of separatists. Now, something with election is that apart from the election violence itself, election period attracts other threats that have nothing to do with election. Because when we're talking of election now, whether it is in Nigeria or anywhere, you will hear international community saying, we hope this election will be free. Even some people are saying 2023 may be the end of Nigeria. And all those kinds of doomsday predictions. What does that do? It attracts a lawbreaker. That is an opportunity because the whole world, the whole media is concentrated on that security. So carry on an attack in a period during or preceding an election is a golden opportunity for either a terrorist or organized criminal group to strike because already there is tension, there is media. So that is the nature of election. Apart from the election related to the violence related to the election itself, other malfeasors will like to use that period to perpetrate spectacular acts because that will bring attention to them and it will, fulfill other motives they have apart from actually even disrupting the election. So that's what it is not surprising that whether it is IPOB, whether it is unknown gunmen, they are hyping their actions as the election is coming. Because it is everybody wants publicity, especially a lawbreaker. So the election period with all the media saying, will Nigeria survive 2023? Will the election even hold? It's an attractive, it's something very attractive for organizations like that to strike.
So you talked about the numbers that were deficient in that one. You've also talked about intelligence gathering, in fact, both of you. And the police might say maybe they had some sort of intelligence, which is why they were able to respond to yesterday's attack. 3 of the attackers were killed. Sadly, 1 policeman died and the building was torched and the vehicle was torched. You've talked about other issues which might not be related to elections, but still they affect elections, as we have seen this latest attack. Perhaps it's one of that you mentioned. So if the numbers are low in terms of kinetic, what other means, perhaps non-kinetic measures, as security officials and experts call it, what other maybe non-kinetic can be deployed? Since we have just about 73 days to the election, clearly we cannot recruit as much as we need, as much as we ought to have. So do you see maybe another alternative in non-kinetic to quell this?
You go back to the first question when you asked me about types of security. When you talk of physical security, it's non-kinetic. For example, even a common burglar, he likes to see a house that is not well protected. He likes to see a house with low walls. He likes to see a house with no barbed wire. He likes to see a house where there is no sign of CCTV. So what these physical security measures do is to discourage. And even if they don't discourage, they will delay the attacker. So you see, in this one, you are not even talking of a policeman on guard, or a military man or a civil defense man on guard. The actual physical security, in fact, even the appearance where the building is, can deter an attacker. A criminal, whether he's a terrorist or just a common criminal, he wants to get reward for minimum of effort. No criminal picks a target that will give him maximum of effort. So sometimes just looking, it's normal. If there's a house with high wall and a house with low wall, the likelihood is that a burglar will go for the house with low walls. So when you are talking of non-kinetics, which should be what should have been done long ago, unfortunately, you cannot be talking of non-kinetics now. Like I said, the non-kinetics start right from identification. Where is the INEC office is going to be? What is the length, what is the height of the wall that we need for a typical? By now, what I should see INEC doing, since now we are taking into account that INEC facilities are going to be attacked, going forward, they should have a standard minimum security requirement for an INEC office in terms of height of perimeter wall, in terms of putting concertina wire, in terms of putting lighting 24/7, in terms of putting alarm system. All these things should be something that, you know, is not just to find any building. Well, you said this one is near local government headquarters, but I want to say, I am a Nigerian, I move around. Not all INEC offices are properly sited. The place where you site a building can either encourage or discourage a lawmaker. If he looks at the effort that he will do before he can break into it, that can discourage him. So these are the non-kinetics you are talking about. Personal security, okay, that one is kinetics. Information security is non-kinetic. You need to have, you know, IT specialists. That's why election security, in fact, it needs not only military, police, it needs many other experts that will contribute. When you're talking about information security, probably it's not a soldier you're looking for. It's not a policeman. You want an IT specialist that can put, you know, barriers and barriers and barriers so that somebody cannot attack your system. The only places where you need kinetics probably is physical, personal security of voters, other stakeholders, even the election officials, and then the on the election day. This is probably why you need kinetics. But when you talk of physical security, when you talk of information security, when you talk of siting the offices, these are non-kinetics. And unfortunately, you need to do this long ago. What INEC is doing, with due respect and with benefit of hindsight, is to bring, you know, security measures as things are happening, not pre-planning, like General Atulagbe said. We are not pre-planning.
Right, just to be clear, INEC is not responsible for security, right? It's the security agencies. And a lot of times when people hear non-kinetic, things that come to mind is usually maybe dialogue, you know, not just the stick, but the carrot, have some sort of soft approach to security. But it's interesting you bring some other dimensions to non-kinetic just to widen this. But let me take this to Major General Atolagbe. I will go to an area which maybe is not usually talked about, because when we talk security, we think about the security agencies, I mean, in collaboration with INEC. But then the role of political parties and political actors. And I'd like to know for you, Major General, what do you make of the political atmosphere in the build-up to the elections, particularly the conduct and utterances of politicians, their supporters and all? How well would you say it is in accordance with the Electoral Act, the guidelines and the peace accord?
Thank you very much. I think most of these are political leaders. They know what they are doing, and they seem to know how to go about it. But if you look at what is obtainable along global standard, we have a lot of things to correct in the way and manner the campaign is going. People misinform us. There are disinformation. There are lies. Open one that everybody can see. And at the end of the day, after feeding the entire country with such information, we see some of them having to clink glasses together at the same time. And I think this is just like making a joke of the whole situation. So what are we saying? 2023 election, I think, is supposed to be a defining moment in the history of this country. And I think that is the more reason why we should talk more seriously on facts, on figures, on at least providing the truth to the story so that people will listen and be able to take the right decision. But if we keep accusing ourselves and keep using some words that are not good within the national polity, but perhaps it's not going to be an interest. It's not everybody that wants to hear those kind of things. We want to hear real, realizable, and things that perhaps we see happening within other climes. We see people go to tell us things that they will do. I'm going to do road. I'm going to provide security. We can't even pick anything solid that we can say, okay, this is what this person is actually driving at. And the other party is going to say the same thing. Some are quoting figures. We cannot even confirm the figures. So these are some of the areas. And when you continue to, some of these things are more or less even inciting people, or not even making people to have the belief that perhaps something very serious is coming up. Because I can't imagine how people will just take guns and go and start destroying houses, government facilities, INEC facilities, and saying that perhaps they don't want election to hold in their own. If there are some seriousness attached to this thing, I think even people will be telling those guys who are going about to tell them that, look, something serious is about happening. And this also goes to the aspect of providing security, because the security aspect also has to do with whatever we are being fed on by these politicians who go in on the air to speak. So I think there's more to be done by the politicians to make sure that they don't misinform people, and they tell us, give us facts, give us realizable information, so that people will take this election more seriously than they've ever done before, and then they'll be able to do things better.
Well, let's wind down on this. We have just about a minute to go, and I'll go to Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. Now, people are in the process of deciding on who to vote for, and competency to handle security challenges effectively will be top on the list of a lot of people. So how can Nigerians tell who really will be fit for the role of the Commander-in-Chief, or call it the Chief Security Officer of the nation?
Thank you very much. I will call on Nigerian voters, beyond giving wide, broad brushes or pen strokes, I will do this, I will do this, should demand for concrete, measurable aspects. What are you going to do as Commander-in-Chief? You are raising a very valuable question. If you do not have a proactive, knowledgeable Commander-in-Chief, our security issues are not going to go away. So I would like to call on Nigerians for each candidate. Don't just accept. I mean, you have to question the candidates on what are they going on security. Definitely security, unfortunately, this regime will not end security issues. Even if they end, security issues can evolve. So security should be in the front burner. And the voters should not accept just, semantics or theatrics or theories. They need to ask concretely, I'm going to improve security by what way? But unfortunately, even the media, with due respect, I do not see you asking very hard questions of the candidates about security. You hear about, there is no substance, there is no details of what the candidates are going to do about security. That's the kind of thing. For me, as a security consultant and somebody who is interested in security, not only for me and my children, I have not had those very difficult questions to know, apart from, just basic things, flowery speeches. I want to know what the candidate as Commander-in-Chief is going to do about security in Nigeria. And the press, you have a lot of role you have to play in bringing these questions to the foremost, not just, mere just paintings. I have not heard, with due respect, I have not heard one candidate that has convinced me with concrete numbers and indicators what is going to do about security. I have not heard.
Well, we at Channels Television will always ask the tough questions without fear or favor. And I'd like for you to watch our town hall. We've had a series of them, and I'm sure that you'll find all of those tough questions right there. But I'd like to thank you so much. Quite important points raised here for the various stakeholders. We've been speaking with Major General Anthony Tolagbe, who is a former theater commander, Operation Safe Haven, joins us virtually, as well as Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, a security expert, a special assistant to the president on disaster management, and adjunct faculty member at George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, joining us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time on the program tonight.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
And good night.